Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make butter tarts, and this is what they look like. This has a buttery, crisp pastry shell, and then inside we're going to put a rich and buttery sweet filling. This is a Canadian favorite. I grew up eating these. I just love them. So the first thing we are going to do is make our pastry. Like I said, I like to make a pastry with butter. And I'm going to use my food processor. You could make it with your hand mixer, or you can even do your pastry by hand. So the first thing you will need is 1 1/3 cups, which is 175 grams of all-purpose flour. You may know that as plain flour. Put that right in there. And then I'm putting a 1/2 tablespoon, 7 grams of granulated white sugar, and a 1/2 teaspoon, 2 grams of salt. Now, if you're making this by hand, just whisk it together or stir it together with a fork. I'm just going to pulse this, mix everything together. Whoop, I did that the wrong way. Okay. There we go. So now, butter, we will need a 1/2 cup, 113 grams, and you want your butter to be cold. And I like to use unsalted butter. I like the flavor, and I also like it because I can control the salt. But again, if you have a favorite salted butter, you could use that and then just leave out the salt in the recipe. Now, like I said, you want it nice and cold. What I do is maybe an hour, you could even do it the night before. Take your block of butter out and cut it into small pieces. And then I put it on a plate and then cover it with plastic wrap and put it back in the fridge. And that way that'll get really nice and cold. That's what's going to give us a nice crisp texture. Okay, just put that in. Now, if you were doing this by hand, you could cut your butter into your flour with either a pastry blender or you could just use your fingertips. I'm going to just pulse this until we get some coarse crumbs. But you know, if you have some chunks of butter still visible, that is the way you want it, actually. Okay, so maybe what? That was maybe 10 seconds? Not very long, so I'll just show you. See, there is some, whether you can see, there is some visible pieces of butter. That's the way I like it. I'm just gonna let flour sticking to the sides. So now, we're going to add water. It's hard for me to tell you exactly how much water. I would say between 3 and 4 tablespoons. Now you want your water nice and icy cold. So what I do is put a glass, put some ice cubes in there, and then your water. So it's better, you know, you can add more water, but you can't take it away. So we only want enough water to bind everything together. So I'm going to start with about 3 tablespoons. And when you either mix it by hand or the food processor, we don't want a solid ball of dough. We just want it to start to come together. And then when we kind of take some, it'll hold. So I'm just going to pulse this. I'm just going to check this. Sometimes it's sticky on the sides. Scrape that down. Starting to come, just a little more. I think I might need a little more water. Okay. It's starting to hold together, but it's a little crumbly still. So I'm just going to add like maybe a 1/2 tablespoon. Sprinkle it. I won't need very much. Okay. Important important thing is you want all that flour moistened. So now it's holding together nice. Just the way I like it. Now, I'm going to just empty this right on my counter. And then I'm just going to bring it together. Give it a knead it for just a little bit. Make sure all that flour is moistened. Because if you didn't moisten it enough, it'll be too crumbly, and you'll find that when you try to roll it out, it's going to fall apart, which you don't want. So that's good. So now I got a piece of plastic wrap. I'm just going to put it into a round, kind of. And then we do have to chill our pastry, make it much easier to roll out. So I'll just wrap it up like so. And I'm going to put this into the refrigerator until it's nice and firm. I would say maybe an hour. So when we come back, we will roll out our pastry. So now our pastry is nice and chilled. First thing you will need is a 12-cup muffin pan. My pan is non-stick. If yours isn't, you might want to either butter your muffin cups or spray them with one of those non-stick sprays. So now to roll our pastry, need a rolling pin, of course. And for my muffin cups, I'll need, this is about a 4-inch round cutter. That's about 10 centimeters. I'm using one with a ruffled edge. You can just use the plain, either way. So now we're going to flour our surface, because we do not want our pastry sticking as we roll. And flour the top. And I'm even going to flour my rolling pin. Now, whenever you're rolling your pastry, kind of start from the center and keep lifting and turning. And that way it won't stick. If you found your pastry at the beginning here is cracking a lot, it might be too cold, you could just let it sit on your counter, or you could take your rolling pin and kind of bang it. Conversely, if you start rolling it out and it's really falling apart on you, maybe it's getting too warm, so then just, stop, put it back in the fridge, let it chill for a little more. So we're going to roll this pretty thin, about 1/8 of an inch, because these are small muffin cups. We don't want the pastry too thick, so roll it pretty thin. Okay, that looks good. You want it so thin you can almost see through it. So then what you want to do is, I just want to make sure it's not sticking. Good run, I'm using my plastic scraper. If you had like a long spatula, you could just run that under there. And then just take and roll it a little thinner on the edge here. You will have to, once you cut out some, you're going to have to gather up the scraps and re-roll. So just cut out, and then you have your round. I'll just show you one. And then just gently ease it in. Get it even. You'll have to it's going to overlap a bit, but just make sure you get it down into the bottom and around the edges, like you would with if you're using a tart pan or a pie pan, same sort of thing, just like that. And I'm just going to carry on, do that. Okay, our last one. So, fit that in. So, and there we are. Okay, so now I'm going to cover that We want, again, to let the gluten kind of relax, and then for these to chill, the pastry to chill again. So I'm going to put them back into the refrigerator. Meanwhile, preheat your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 190 degrees Celsius. And then when we come back, we will make our filling, assemble our tarts, and bake them off. So now for our butter tart filling. If you have a stand mixer like I have here, you can use your paddle attachment. You could use a hand mixer to make this, or really you can just a bowl with a wooden spoon. Now first, there is a big debate in Canada whether your butter tart filling should be runny, kind of like it runs down your arms when you start to eat it, or do you like it more firm? I'm in the camp where I like it firm. The difference is if you like your butter tart filling runny, it will have corn syrup. So that's the big difference. So the first thing you will need is 1/3 cup, 75 grams of butter. Have your butter at room temperature. Again, I'm using unsalted, but you could use salted. And I'm just going to beat this just on low speed, just until it's nice and smooth. Okay, that's good. For this filling, we just want to mix everything together. We don't really want to incorporate a lot of air, because if you get like a lot of air, then the filling will kind of really puff up as it bakes. I mean, it's going to puff up a little, but so that's why you could easily do this by hand. So now, I will warn you, butter tarts are sweet. They just are. I love them that way, but just so you know. So I am going to add 1 cup, which is 200 grams of light brown sugar. And then I'm going to add 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of pure vanilla extract. Now then I'm just going to add just a pinch, like 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. So if you use salted butter, you can just leave that salt out. I'm just going to mix this. All I want to do is get everything mixed together. So medium, low speed. Okay, that's good. As always, you know, periodically scrape down the sides and the bottom of your bowl to make sure everything gets mixed together. So next, we are going to add 2 large eggs, which is 100 grams of eggs out of the shell, and have your eggs at room temperature. I'm just going to put them both in at once. And we're just going to beat that again, medium, low speed, just until it's all incorporated. Okay, that looks good. And one more ingredient. You will need 1/4 cup, which is 60 grams, 60 milliliters of cream. You could use like a light cream. I'm using half and half. As if they weren't rich enough, eh? Okay, I'm just going to beat that in. And we are done. So I'm just going to pause here because I'm going to go get my tart shells, and then we will fill them and bake them off. Okay, so now we are ready to fill our tart shells. The other big debate in Canada is, do you use walnuts or do you use raisins? Dark raisins, usually Thompson. I like to use walnuts. I actually like to toast my walnuts. So what I do, you will need 1/2 cup of walnuts, which is 55 grams. I put them on a baking sheet, just put them in your oven for maybe, 8 minutes, just until you start to smell them, let them cool, and then coarsely chop. Conversely, you could use, like I said, the raisins, or if you want to satisfy both people, you could use a mix, which I have done, or you can just leave it out altogether and just have the filling. So I'm just going to, I like to just kind of cover the bottom of the tart shells. I know some people actually stir the nuts or the raisins into the filling. I don't. I like to kind of make sure that each one has about the same amount. So just, cover the bottom. So that looks good. And then I put the filling in a smaller container. Look, I actually want one of these silicone measuring cups. I kind of just going to give it a good stir here. And then we're just going to evenly fill them with that buttery sweet filling. Okay. I think I should have enough. Okay, looks good. And I should mention for our American friends who like pecans, you could use that instead of walnuts. So now to bake these. Everyone's oven is a little different. What we're looking for is we want the pastry to start to turn brown, so you can see it around the outside edge, and we want the filling to be set, and it will kind of puff up beautifully. So I'm going to say about 20 minutes. You know, you might want to check it before that, but around 20. And I do like to rotate my pan front to back about halfway through baking, just so you get an even bake. So I'm going to say 20 minutes. Our butter tarts are done. So put your pan on a wire rack. Don't they look good? So you can see the filling did puff up. Now as they cool, you will notice that filling is going to kind of come down. And you can see the pastry has browned around the edges. So that's how I want it. Now what we're going to do is let these cool. And then I'm going to take this silicone offset spatula to take them out and finish cooling, and then when we come back we will try one. So now let's try a butter tart. These are good warm at room temperature, and my personal favorite, I like them cold. So this one's still a little warm, so I'll just cut it, show you the inside. You can see there. Oh, you got the pastry, you've got the nice soft filling, lots of nuts. Oh. Okay, let's try some. First, I like a butter tart. I like a butter tart because they're small. And that way, because there's such a sweet filling, I like having a lot of pastry. Kind of counters that sweetness. And then I like the crunch of the walnuts. And then again, it kind of balances the sweetness of that filling. So you got the buttery crisp pastry, you got that sweet filling, crunch of the walnuts. Absolutely perfect. And like I said, warm, room temperature. Try them cold, my favorite. And they freeze really well, so you have to try these. Oh, and if you want to kind of, these are very similar to, for Americans, to a pecan pie. So you will like, if you like a pecan pie, you're going to love a butter tart. So try these. And until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joyofbaking.com.